Alright, here starts this journey this morning. I'm going to attempt to tell the story of this car that I've had for 8 years. It's dark, I know. So here we are. The story of my 95 BMW. Where the hell did these come from? Well, useful. BMW 545i. Yeah. This is the story of Krauthammer. That's what I've named it. But, I had it for 8 years, put 60,000 miles on it, took it from nothing to something. And here we go. Street sweeper. Those guys. It's 4:56 and heading out of Oceanside up to Spokane, Washington, and the last bon voyage of this BMW of mine. Why is the light out? It's weird. Very strange. Oh, there's no power over there either. Oh, cute. At any rate, this thing, God, I bought it in 2016, and the reason why I got into a 5 Series is because I had fallen in love with little BMWs. My grandfather had a 1987 L7, and I just loved that thing. That, of course, was not a little car, but as these cars get bigger and bigger over the years, I mean, this 5 Series is about the same size as a newer 3 Series. But I digress. I had a couple E30s, never actually drove them. And the thing about it is, I'm way too big of a dude to be driving around in a 3 Series of 1989 or 90 or whatever. So I was looking for a car that would be a little more comfortable for me, bigger, still have fun. I was originally looking for a 525, but I came across a Spanish-speaking ad on Craigslist for this car up in Santa Ana, and I think he wanted $1,200 for it. Took my buddy Josh up there. Josh, if you watch this, you'll remember that trip. It was terrifying for you. And we test drove it, and it was a pile of crap. But neither here nor there. We took it home, and I only paid $900 for it. And then I proceeded to spend lots of hours and time going through things on this thing. So it's a 540i 6-speed manual. Pretty rare vehicle. For the years 94 and 95, this was the M5 replacement, because that engine in the M5 was not able to be sold here in the States. So BMW is like, hey, we need a sporty car until we get to the E39. And they had a plan for that one and all that. And the story is they decided to shove the new V8 that they had built, that was in the 740, in between the strut towers of this thing. And this car is essentially an M5. It's got the sport suspension, sport sway bars, all that stuff. Slightly lower, but it's got the V8, and it doesn't have the load leveling suspension, which over time all the M5 guys switch over to this setup anyway. So you kind of get the best of everything. Yeah, so I got the car, and Immediately tore into it. You can kind of see it's a black interior now, but when I got it, it was beige, and the driver's seat was a sports seat, and I still have them. But it was torn to shreds, and the frame was broken, and gosh, lots of stories on that. But when we get some better light, I'll take some actual good video of this thing, and we'll do a walk around, and hopefully I can just give a little story about what I've done to the car and the amount of blood, sweat, and tears I've poured into it, and for no reason, mostly because I'm cheap. Anyway, talk to you later. Come on, focus. There we go. So the first thing with this car that I struggled with, well, it had some really crappy chrome rims on it. So the first thing I did is went and got some wheels from the junkyard, and stuff from the junkyard is going to be a theme with this car for the most part. Got some regular old 5 Series wheels. There were a ton of these cars in the junkyard, no big deal. And threw those on. I could actually push it around. And I went to just try driving the thing around, and it needed some serious work, right? So I was working down in Scripps Ranch, living at my house in Oceanside, and I still had my 4Runner, and I would daily that, but I would in the evenings try to figure out, all right, what's the story with this thing? Well, it had an overheating problem, and I put a bunch of videos on it, but the short story is, after about 3,000 or 4,000 miles of diagnostics where it would get hot and then cool off, and hot and cool off, and turns out it was a blown head gasket. The internet led me astray. They're like, oh, these things never blow head gaskets, and they're probably right, they don't. But considering I had no history of this vehicle, and it had 229,000 miles when I got it. We got 288, 945 right now. Should be well over 290 by the time I drop it off. But it was a blown head gasket. I tried everything. I even went crazy enough. I'm like, it's got to be a blockage. Someone put Blue Devil in it or something like that. No, it wasn't that. So, went to work replacing all cooling system components. The valve for the heater core, it's got its own pump. I replaced that. Thermostat, water pump, all that good stuff. Went and got a Mishimoto E36 radiator. Fit that thing into here, so it's all aluminum. I had oil pressure issues, or it's not oil pressure, coolant pressure issues, you name it. Just all sorts of problems. So I did everything that was inexpensive at first. Relatively. I mean, that radiator was $250 at the time, no big deal. Even went and put a Volvo electronic fan, got rid of the clutch fan, and switched it over to waterless coolant, which is just a silly way of saying 100% coolant. It doesn't expand as much. Keeps the pressure down to 0. This thing, when it's good and hot, I can just remove the rad cap or the reservoir cap, and no problem. It won't burst or anything like that. So, you know, with plastic components in a car like this, I figured that would be a worthwhile move. But eventually, I had to face the music and replace the engine, do something with the engine. And more on that later. Before I even get to the engine swap, I forgot that, you know, the guy I bought this from, he was a Mexican dude. Whatever, but, you know, when they buy cheap cars, they just run them into the ground. They don't really maintain them. It's understandable. I mean, if you're just trying to get around, you know, you don't want to spend a bunch of money. I get it, but when I went and talked to him, he's like, yeah, I bought a Mercedes, I don't like shifting gears. And I'm like, okay, cool. Like I said, it had really bad wheels on it, and it just shook like hell on the way back. The cooling system got hot. It bust a radiator hose, the upper hose immediately. We went and grabbed some duct tape type stuff at a AutoZone or something and wrapped it up and nursed the thing home. Josh was a friggin' badass for doing that with me. But I forgot the thing had like all sorts of vacuum leaks. So this is before I really got into the cooling issues, trying to sort those out. It had vacuum leaks. It had a bad PCV valve in the back of the intake manifold. The intake manifold gaskets were dried up. You shoot carb cleaner while it's running and the RPM would go up. So just everything. It was just kind of a neglected vehicle. So went through all that stuff, and then I went to trying to solve the issue. It would sit there and you'd be minding your own beeswax, and all of a sudden the coolant gauge would just slowly creep up, and then you would it would go back. I did all sorts of tests and really couldn't figure out exactly what was going on. There was nothing obvious, and even when I wound up replacing the engine and tearing down the old motor, I didn't really find a smoking gun. All I know is that doing the work I did, which I'll describe later, did fix it. So it's kind of nice. By the way, cruise control works. Can't see crap in here, but cruise control works. Just blasting along in St. Clemente, about 80. Trying to get on the north side of Los Angeles before traffic hits this Thursday. At this rate, I don't think I'm going to have any problems at all. So, yeah. Be with you soon. So, you know, you try to remember stuff as you to talk about. I mean, this thing had a stuck fuel injector. So I learned how to clean a fuel injector. I just grabbed them all, yanked them all out while I had the intake manifold off and got those cleaned up. This thing had some weird issues with fuel pressure, like it'd be really hard to start, and one of the things that can happen on these is the fuel pump can lose its prime, I guess, or the fuel line will, and it'll drain back into the tank and therefore take several cycles of the key or a long cranking to get it to go. Well, there's a check valve you can install. I put that in. It's in the trunk area. Just lift it up, just inboard towards the rear seats, past the spare tire. Also had a fuel pressure regulator that was no good, caused some issues. I replaced that in the fuel line. By the way, that's a pain in the butt. When I started doing work on the engine and started tearing stuff down, all the plastics under the hood just started crumbling. I mean, it had 230,000 miles or so at that point. What do you expect, right? So I had to replace knock sensors, and this engine's got 4 of them. And at the time, it was a lot of money. It was like, I think, $280 for all 4, and I was like, golly, that's a lot of cash. But you know, we had just bought a house and just trying to pinch pennies and make life work for the wife and I, and so you sweat those small things and you do the hard labor, and you learn a lot along the way, and when you're done, you're smarter and wiser, and that's all you can do on that front. I'll keep mentioning stuff as they come to me. Yeah. Santana. Can't tell. Come on. Fall guys. Fish, whatever. This is where I got the car. Santa Ana. suspension was just a wreck. It was just clapped out. And so I replaced all the control arms and all that good stuff in the front, but I was cheap. I used Euro parts, which anyone who knows the German stuff are like, yeah, that'll kind of work. It lasted about 25,000 miles. Then I finally went and bought some Lemforders, which is a good OEM brand, and that was a wise decision, and I haven't had a problem with suspension since. They have a complicated front suspension on this thing, and it takes, it's got like an upper and a lower control arm, and end links. It's got drag link because it uses a steering box, so all that's been replaced. Less than 40,000 miles or so. Everything's good. It's been aligned. The thing drives straight as an arrow, so I'm happy with that. And gosh, there's more stuff, I'm sure. Just going through all the memories. So the funny story about the engine, we'll get to it. So I finally decided, let's fix this overheating problem. I probably put like, I don't know, 5,000 miles dealing with the overheating that was intermittent. And I'll crack open the hood later and I'll show you what's under it. But man, pulling heads off, since I figured it was a head gasket problem. I mean, I tried pouring muriatic acid into the cooling system to try to get rid of Blue Devil. I did all sorts of crazy stuff. Nothing worked. So I decided, let's go ahead and yank the motor. And you have to yank the motor in order to get to all the header bolts anyway. It was just kind of a pain in the butt. So I found a car for sale in Ramona. Dude was parting it out on Craigslist, and it's funny, the best part about working on cars is that, and buying used parts from people, is you meet people and you make friends for life. And so I met German Espinel in Ramona. He manages a yard. Some guy needs him to watch over it, and so he lives in a trailer on the yard. I mean, it's a nice place, but he had this 740i. I want to say it was an M62 B44. It wasn't the TU motor, so it was a 4.4 liter V8 with 120,000 miles, and it hadn't had the timing chain problem, which is very common on those later revision engines, and I'll get into that later. So I yanked that motor out. He and I became buddies. He was all into Cummins trucks, and he loves taking old Ford trucks and putting Cummins stuff in, and that wound up being a passion of mine in some ways too. And he's the one who started it. So thanks, German. Appreciate it, bro. We grabbed that engine and brought it back, and it was around that time I started hanging out with my buddy Mikey, who's gonna be getting this thing. Technically his name is Michael, but I don't know, we've known the guy forever. So I'll insert some pictures of him here pressure washing the new engine and doing the dirty work. And then we'll talk about all that was involved and what I wound up having done machine work wise to get this thing taken care of and back on the road. So I forgot, but one of the things that introduced me to how frustrating the engine bay is on this car, it's really not bad, it's just bad if you need to work on something, so I guess it is bad. One of the things that I had a problem with at first, oh come on, I'm smack in the middle of LA, I guess. This is what I expect. Golly, it's just 6 o'clock and it's already bad. Wowzers. Wow. So much for being traffic. Hopefully there's no accident or anything, or if there is, everyone's okay. Brakes. So I had power steering leaks when I first got this thing. I couldn't figure out what the heck was going on. Went online, went to real OEM and looked it up, and oh, well, because the brake booster is relocated to the very front left of the engine compartment, the power steering reservoir is farther back, and you have to wind it underneath the booster to the front where it has that little metal coil cooling pipe that just sticks in the front to keep the thing cool. Well, BMW in their infinite wisdom used a bunch of hard pipes mixed in with splices of short rubber hoses, and by the time you get to 200,000 miles, that stuff's crispy, and it's shrunk or it's cracked or whatever, and you get leaks. So I did the right thing and yanked all that crap out as best I could. I think there's still some hard lines in there, and just ran regular old hose and rerouted it up to the front. And eventually I wound up putting in a oil cooler that I pulled off a junkyard, pulled off of a like a 86 E23, so the 635, 633, I think it was a 635, first year of that. Grabbed that, put it on the front, mounted it up myself, and ran the cooler to there, and I haven't had any problems since. Every now and then you'll get a power steering screech or whatever, but it's the factory power steering. So much for beating traffic. That's okay. Bumpers on this thing. So they made bumpers for only, well, this material is only done for 2 years, which is just delightful. And they're prone to cracking, and they crack and then they look like just look like crap. So it's real common to see these trashed. I think this is my third set of bumper covers. Just picking whatever I could off out of a junkyard. And currently the ones that are on here are actually white, but I just rattle-catted them black, and they've held up. They're fine. I just Rust-Oleum. This traffic sucks. Tried to avoid this. Oh well. Once I'm on the other side, it should be totally fine. Totally fine. At least it's getting lighter. Maybe you can see me now. I don't know. Whatever. Yeah. That's where I'm at. So, yeah, I think I'm gonna do what that guy did. Well, whatever. It's a long drive, Paul. Calm down. Anywho, I forgot one of the things that I did immediately is my buddy Josh told me on the drive back. He's like, bro, this gas pedal's so sticky, it's really weird, it's notchy. This has got a drive-by cable, so it just uses a cable and pulls the throttle body that way. Well, underneath the dash, which, well, you can see there's the third pedal. Underneath the dash, attached to the gas pedal, is a lever that goes from the right side over to the left side and through the firewall where it attaches to the cable, and then that's what pulls it. Well, what happens after a while is there's rubber bushings, or I don't know if they're bushings or grommets, or I don't know, but basically the throttle shaft gets play in it, and it starts manually grinding metal on metal in the bracket. And so that was one of the first things I replaced. That was super cheap. It's just a pain in the butt to get all the way underneath there, but you know, working underneath any car is just a joy. So, just like this traffic is a joy. Alright. Sacktown, here we come. Funny thing is, this fuel door, you can see is skidded along the ground at some point. We couldn't find it when we got the car, but we found it. It's got a little latch, and I just use a little magnet to hold it. I don't know. Anyway. So you can see, I'm gonna get copyright. You can see this is where the brake booster is. It's all the way up front. They didn't have enough room in this engine bay for this motor. So it wasn't really designed to have a V8. You can see my power steering hoses. Here's the power steering reservoir. It just winds down, and then underneath there's the radiator, coolant reservoir, mass airflow, brake stuff. There's the coolant crossover pipe. There's just so much going on this thing. Anyway, see you at another gas stop or something. Central California, bugs everywhere. Can't even focus. There we go. But we got really pretty skies. Very wispy. Everything's going great. Just running down a dream.
The problem is when you're holding up another 210 members of Congress.
I'll cut that out.
Some sort of...
Well, here I am in Sacramento, home of some of the worst people on the planet. Anyway, car's doing great. Just averaged 24.3 miles per gallon on the last tank, and hasn't burned a drop of oil. Oh, wife's calling. All right, we're about 100 miles outside of Redding on the south side. There's Mount Shasta over there. It's the one to the right. It's a little taller. Probably doesn't look amazing on film, but it doesn't matter. But I'm gonna go ahead and tell you what I did to that engine. So, getting technical, BMW's V8, they basically designed it in like probably the mid 80s. Didn't really go into a car until I think like 89 or 90. But its original iteration, which is what this car originally had, was a 4-liter dual overhead cam V8. And in later years, they upped the displacement to 4.4 liters. So the original engine code was M60, which stands for the V8, M60B40. That's the original one. 40 stands for 4 liter. There's also a 30, which is a 3 liter. And then later there became a M62, which is the first revision of this V8. M62 B44, and then there's a B44 TU, which TU stands for Technical Update, and that one is far newer than what I've got. It has variable valve timing, all that stuff, but I digress. That being said, when I wanted to pull the engine, I was like, well, if I'm going to pull the engine to replace head gaskets, I'm getting a dang upgrade. That's for sure. And since the car already had about 230,000 miles, more than that, I don't even remember, had a bunch of miles, I'm like, let's just find a lower mileage motor. And I mentioned that I went to this place in Ramona. The guy was partying out this car, German, and he and I kind of became friends as a result of us just hanging out. And he had this 96 or 97 740, and we yanked that motor and put it in my 4Runner, and we got it home, and my buddy Mike comes over, and we tear the thing down, and after we tear it down, we pressure wash it, and I'll insert some pictures of the pressure washing here. But got it down. Then I pulled my motor and I started tearing it down as well. Now the main difference between the M60 and M62 is in the timing setup. I'll show some pictures of the difference, but there's two main differences. The M60, the earlier version of the engine, excuse me, had what's called a duplex chain, or a double roller chain. So the chain is two sets of links wide. So you can think of it as about that wide. Okay. When they did an update, they wanted to save rotating mass, and they lowered it down to a single chain. And in the V of the V8, they got rid of the idler pulley, which guided the chain around without causing any problems. But of course, it increases resistance since it's metal. They wanted more efficiency, and so they eliminated that center sprocket. And what happens is the timing chain guide that the chain is going around is constantly under pressure, and because it's made of a plastic, eventually the heat cycles get to it and it breaks. And then now you've got a ton of these cars that are actually in otherwise pretty good shape, 740s, 540s, that no one wants to spend the $2,000 in parts to repair, and the labor's out of control too. It's just not worth the money. So anyway, that was not the case with this car. This car had a bad transmission, but the engine was good. So I grabbed it, got it all cleaned up, and started preparing for the swap. So I took my heads off of my engine after I pulled it, sent it over to Machine Tech in Oceanside, and they milled the heads flat. I believe they had to take 10 thou off, which is a lot. And now that I think about it, it's possible that the car did get hot several times, didn't really blow a head gasket, but warped the cylinder head. Possible, don't know. That being said, I had the heads milled flat. I had to take the cams out and all that stuff, and I've got the cam tools somewhere. So I'll have to get those to you, Mike, if you're interested. Pulled the heads out, they milled them down, and in the meantime I grabbed the 4.4 liter block and got that prepped by swapping all of the timing gear over from my old engine, which had the superior setup, to the new one. And everyone wondered if there was any chain stretch, and here's a picture. I'll insert that if I remember to listen to this and hear that cue. But I basically, the chain doesn't stretch hardly at all. Maybe more so on the simplex chain, but the duplex chain, it was totally good. So I'm still running the factory chain, factory timing setup. The timing guides are still original. No doubt some of it's in the oil pan. And also at this time, speaking of oil pan, I had the B44 block flipped over and cleaned up and tightened up the oil pump bolts, because what can happen is those can back off, and then all of a sudden the oil pump chain starts slipping and you get a low oil pressure problem, specifically at idle. Once I threw a tiny bit of Loctite on those bolts and tightened it up, that was not going to ever be an issue, and it certainly hasn't since. So I plopped that motor in and left it OBD1 and didn't make any other changes. I figured it was just displacement, and sure enough, got it bolted up. Thing fires up and runs great. I think I've got 45 or 50,000 miles on that engine, and not a single problem. Not even a hiccup. Thing runs great. I run Rotella T in it, and I'm actually pretty bad at oil changes. I'll make sure there's always oil in it, but I do the oil changes every 8 to 10,000 miles, once or twice, once a year basically. But anyway, that's a short story. When I sealed the new engine up with all the timing stuff, I didn't even bother buying new gaskets or anything. All I wound up doing was getting some of the right stuff, which I think is a Permatex brand. But that stuff worked fabulous. No leaks from there at all. The only oil leaks that I'm aware of on this car, they're from two places, but they're both having to do with the oil lines. The oil cooler lines, there's a little bit of a weep. I'm sure they need to be replaced, but honestly, it hasn't really made too much of a difference. I think it burns more oil than it does leak it, that's for sure. The valves, I didn't have them touch anything in the cylinder head. So these cylinder heads have 289,480 miles on them. The lifters, they do get a little, when you let this thing sit for like 2 weeks, the lifters will not hold their prime, and so the first startup is awfully clattery after a couple weeks, but once it's done, it's good to go, and you won't have any issues for a while. So anyway, this thing's been a great bullet. It's been a fun car for me to own. I'm really happy with it. It's just getting old and getting tired, so I'll continue telling stories. So at this point, I still have all the beige interior in here. Maybe later today, I will take some better photographs of the car or video of the car, and talk about the interior and what I wound up doing with that. Can't really see it, but there's so much moisture in the air. Just a ton of it. I can talk about the transmission. So the transmission is, I think it's called the G56 by Getrag. It's a fairly close ratio 6-speed manual, and it's been flawless. I've had no problems with this thing at all. I've changed the fluid from the original stuff that was in it, probably at 245, 250, because I had to have the whole transmission out because I needed to put a new clutch in it. I got one of those videos on my channel just showing what it's like when the clutch starts slipping like crazy. But this clutch was the same clutch that was in the 94 and 95 540. Not the same clutch. They never had a 740 with a manual in Europe, I don't think. At any rate, the 840 had the exact same clutch as this one as well. It's, I think, 265 millimeters. So the E34, and then I can't remember what the other one is. I don't know. But the 840 and the 540 shared the same clutch. New clutch and pressure plate were not cheap, but I got it for a good deal. Flywheel was alright. I didn't even bother having it resurfaced because it's a dual mass flywheel and no one will. But I just slapped the clutch on and you're set to go. And the thing was just fantastic. So no problems at all with the clutch. Let's see. That'll do for now. Yeah, I'm an idiot. I don't think I was looking at it. Well, Shasta. But this is definitely Shasta now. I forgot how massive it is. I should have known better. I don't know if you can see that. Let me zoom in. green everywhere. It's green. Look at that granite. Lots of water. Oh yeah. Oh. Oh. Lots of water. Hard to tell. That's as full as I've ever seen it. I've been here when it's been practically empty. But that's full. That's full. All right, getting curvy. Save me. Oh. Beautiful. Lord, strike me dead. Everybody wants to bring somebody for the sorry shake their hand. Everybody has to take a step back, see where it all began. Nobody's listening, they're all spitting in the wind. Somebody just come alive till the winds are over hand. The amount of water is just nuts. I'm talking like maybe 5 feet. Driving great. Such a good road trip car. Such a good road trip car. It just hugs the road. It's like chasing a giant. That's what it seems like. You know this huge frickin' mountain is right there. But you can't get to it. It's wild. Oh, that thing is loaded. I bet he's nervous driving that down. Filled with a bunch of liquids and stuff. Drinks and whatnot. Blackberry Smoke, if you copyright this, I don't blame you. Your music is just perfect. Come on, giant. Beautiful granite hill that I just missed. I don't know. We might see it. Well, there's Shasta. There you go. To make the viewfinder feel like it actually feels, that's what it feels like. Big cinder cone mountain up ahead. Pretty sure it's just volcanic, but the real reason why I'm videoing is so we can hear this. I just love the sound of this car. It just sounds so Italian to me. Never gets old. Well, it's been 12 hours on the road, and I am just outside of Klamath Falls, Oregon, which admittedly is southern Oregon. I got nothing bad to report. Freaking car is just rock solid. The paint's terrible. We know that. But I'm a fan. Might as well show the interior real quick. So this thing was originally tan interior, and I found it at Ecology Auto Wrecking because of my buddy, same guy I went and got the car with. He told me, he said, hey, there's a whole full interior 525 95, go and get it. So I did. I literally grabbed everything. These seats, on the other hand, I had the comfort seats that are originally in the 5 Series, the 525, but I eventually found these, which are E46 sport seats out of an 03. Full power, the memory even works and all that stuff. And then I went and had the headliner redone. And this is a VW pattern. It's going to be hard to tell. That might be better to tell. But it's a VW pattern. I did this shelf. It's missing these things, which I should have just bought, but I haven't yet. These things are annoying. They always just shrivel up. I don't know what the solution is on that. But the sports seats are comfortable. They really, really are. Then the other interior thing I did was this. This is an E36 M3 steering wheel out of a 99. Single stage airbag. And with it being a single stage airbag, it actually works, and the supplemental restraint system works perfect. So, anywho, sorry for chewing the gum. I'm at 5,000 feet of elevation here. Let's see, we got, blower wine. 289, 721. Yeah. On the road again. I gotta say, this is a fabulous drive. Oh, if it'll focus out there. This is Upper Klamath Lake to the left. Oh, too many bugs. Lots of bugs. There we go. Kinda. Anyway, it's just gorgeous. About 5,000 feet in elevation, probably 4,500, something like that. It's like, it's desert and mountainous. I mean, you can see in the background there's snow-capped mountains. It's just amazing. And there was a lot of snow up here at some point. Well, still kind of is on the ground. Holy mackerel. I mean, that's got to be 7 feet easy. Headed to Crater Lake, trying to catch it before the sun goes down. I've seen one car in the past 50 miles. It's pretty rad. Anyway, sorry the window is all dirty and I'm playing music in the background. This is crazy. I love it. 41 degrees. So I don't think I have to worry about this water turning to ice. I don't know. I'll just drive like it's not. And with the light and all the crazy stuff, it's just... it's majestic. I wish my wife were here. Let's see where this takes us. If I can get up here without falling. It's so quiet up here. Ooh. Yep, this is as epic as I could say it would be. Holy shite! Oh, freaking wow! Still water. Sorry, I'm fat and out of breath. Look at that view. Wow. It's just incredible. I hear somebody over there. This was worth the detour. It's just amazing. All right. Yeah, I just gotta say stuff as I remember it on this car. One thing to notice how the lights are on and everything's lit up and it seems to be working fine except for that switch. You can't even see that switch because everything's black up there, but let me make this turn and I'll show you. It actually does light up. I just have to tap it. It's very weird. Don't make me a liar. Oh, there we go. Loose connection somewhere in there. Yeah. Oh, and another thing that I did to this car. Sorry. Gosh, I would say about 10,000 miles ago. Yeah, somewhere 22, I think. I drove out to Scottsdale to go meet CJ Orndorff and Rick and go play at a couple venues. One was a church on Sunday, and then on Saturday was New Freedom is what the place is called. And great facility. But anyway, I made it out there in the Beamer, no problem, and it was in the middle of summer. It was like August. It had to have been 110 degrees or so, I would guess. And then on the way back, my air conditioning pretty much gave up. And Rick and I drove back because the tour bus kept going somewhere else with CJ on it, and Rick and I drove back, and we lovingly called this the BMW sauna or something like that. I got some photographs that I'll find and I'll try to throw them in here of him and I getting super goofy. It was hot. It had to have been like 117, 118 in the car. But not only was it hot, when we got in to Imperial Valley, it was ridiculously humid as well. And the bugs, it was just wild. At any rate, right before that trip, I had the clutch slave cylinder go out on this car. And the slave cylinder is inside the transmission. So it's kind of like the Ford small block ZF transmission and the Ford M5OD and lots of other transmissions that have a hydraulic throwout bearing that's internal inside the bell housing. Some of them have externals, like the diesel and big block ZF5s, for example. Why am I telling you this stuff? It's stupid. It's just a waste of time. At any rate, I could not get the line, a hydraulic fluid line, at all to come off, and wound up destroying the line. So I wound up making my own line, and it's not beautiful, and I'm sorry for that. Hopefully you'll never have to look at it ever again. Maybe, I don't know. At any rate, I'm still just cruising along. It was 39 degrees up there at Crater Lake, and it's now 50 down here, and it's fantastic. Goal is to try to make it to Bend tonight. I will say this, in the HVAC unit, the squirrel cage in there, or whatever the kind of motor it is, or fan, on setting 1 and 2, it can get a super annoying sound. I'm sure that it's just dirt or something like that. Maybe hair, car hair, or cat hairs, dog hairs, whatever, just clogging up. So at some point you might want to consider replacing that, or getting in there and cleaning it. It's a pain in the ass because it's behind all this. Yeah, I think I got pictures also of me having the entire dash out, and I'll put that in as well. Oh God, so much work I did on this car, but it was fun, and I love driving this thing still. I really do. Freaking blasted with bugs. Oh, I love the hood opening this way, and all the bug juice in the world will not get rid of this stuff. I mean, look at the mirrors. There's just dead everything, and then of course bee poop from home. Look at the bumper. Oy vey. Anywho. Good morning. I am in the town of Madras, and I found the top of the hill. Madras is about 30 minutes or so north of Bend. And I stayed at this place, the bunkhouse. Honestly, the name is not appealing, but it's cowboy themed, which explains everything. And there's the butte. Just pilloried with bugs. But legit, that was, I want to say 1,100 miles yesterday. Did great. Really did. Alright. Spider web. He hitched a ride. This is so greasy I don't want to touch it. So there's the oil filter housing. One weird thing about it is there's this, see the white gasket? They're usually black. If you don't get that just right, cause yourself a problem. It'll start pinching and allowing the pressure to go everywhere. It's really kind of annoying. But let's pull the dippity stick and see where we're at. Totally fine. Like full. We're good there. Sorry, bunkhouse. I apologize. So there's the main drag. Let me zoom in. Yeah, there's the main drag of Madras. It's really cool. Oh, and they got this really cool old, it's like a Model T style truck, I don't know. Alright, time to start heading to Spokane. Later. Let's figure out a cold start. Figure out a cold start. It's gonna start, no problem. I just want to see what temp it is outside. 40. Watch the gauges freak out, Mike. Oh, by the way, this is an auto dimming mirror out of an E38 740 or 750, probably 740. It auto dims. It's really kind of nice. I retrofitted that. Just gave it 12 volts, and this sensor right here knows what to do. But yeah. All right, let's see it. Put her in neutral. You don't need a clutch start safety. Oh, yep, there it goes. Oh yeah. Yep. Oh. Power steering's a little cranky. Probably should check the fluid. I don't think it's leaking. I don't know. But that's not bad. See, I got a whole boatload of miles in there. All right, bye. You can see my custom swirl marks I put in on this thing. Long story. So the rear brakes are good. The rotors are good. The pads are good. I'm pretty sure I replaced all 4 calipers in this thing, and I redid the rear brake lines. It had the soft lines. It's got 4 soft lines in the back. It's stupid. The front, though, I don't think I replaced those soft lines. I know I did the calipers, and I know I did the rotors, but you can see there's a groove that's worn in. There's no real major lip or anything on them. But I kind of wonder if the soft lines need to be done on this, because I'll try to check my records, but I don't recall having done them. I have no idea. Yeah.
Right onto the I-84 East ramp, then merge onto I-84 East.
Well, I thought I was going to cross the Columbia. Apparently not. Oh well. That's where I'm at. I'm not gonna lie, it's a big freaking river. That's a big boy river.
Continue on I-84 East for 74 miles.
You can't even see it, but it's huge. Like, into Spokane. Car's been just flawless. One thing I should mention is the car's got good Bilsteins on it. I did the fronts and then I did the rears. No, I did the rears and then I did the fronts. Less than 20,000 miles worth, and so this is probably as good as it's gonna ride. So once again, I've enjoyed your car. We've arrived. This is the new owner.
Yep. Proud new owner.